Good afternoon. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon here in Johannesburg, and it's time for Salam Media Highlights. And we're calling this edition What You've Missed Rundown. This week, the biggest story has been that of the Madlanga Commission, and most importantly, General Commissioner Mkhwanazi taking center stage with explosive testimonies. He alleges that criminal syndicates have infiltrated multiple arms of the criminal justice system. From the South African police services right up to intelligence and to prosecutors, the judiciary, and even the political structures. So literally every layer of South Africa's judicial system is captured. And our guest today is Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, Director of the Center for the Advancement of Non-Racialism and Democracy at Nelson Mandela University, and is also an astute political analyst. And he'll be breaking down for us what has been revealed at the Commission thus far, what many South Africans may have missed, and what the implications are for democracy and racial justice in our country. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us the time this afternoon, and looking forward to unpacking, I think, the biggest story of the year thus far.
Thank you very much for having me, my brother, and good afternoon to your viewers.
I think we'll just get right into it. If you can start the conversation by maybe setting the scene for our listeners who might have only, caught little snippets of what the core allegations that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi has raised at the Madlanga Commission so far, especially around political interference and just the general rot in the criminal justice system here in South Africa. And what have you made of his testimony so far? I think it's still live, it's still going on, but from Wednesday right till today, there's been a lot of bombshells that he's been throwing.
Yes, indeed. There have been a number of interesting moments since General Mkhwanazi started presenting his evidence. One thing I should commend him for is that the stance he took when he first made the media briefing on the 6th of July, he hasn't moved an inch. If anything, he has in fact put meat into the bones that he gave us in that media briefing. One thing I've appreciated with this presentation is that he's cool, he's calm, he's collected. And then whenever he makes a statement, he then subsequently backs it up with facts, which makes it very difficult to then challenge him. Of course, we are yet to hear the other side of the story, where those who are implicated will be presenting their side of the story. But from what he's been saying, his story has been consistent and it has been backed up by evidence, and he prepared himself well by ensuring that all the relevant documents are in place to support the allegations that he's making. So far, I would say that I'm happy with how things have proceeded thus far.
I want to roll it back a bit, because there was a lot of concern regarding the fact that we might have another commission of inquiry on another issue, which is, rattling of the status quo of what we know South Africa to be. When the president announced that, the best way to go about investigating the allegations that General Mkhwanazi made early in the year, it was to have a commission. We know the history that commissions in South Africa have. You can go back to the Seriti Commission, the Zondo Commission. He's still, crying, saying, so much work was made in that commission, but, none of it has been used to, make sure that people are put behind bars. Having a commission for this kind of nature of allegations, did you agree with the president that is the best way to go about it, considering the history that the country has with commissions and them ultimately, to be honest, not yielding any kind of results?
My brother, I'm glad that you asked this question. In fact, I'm one of the critics of commissions. I'm not a fan of commissions, I must be frank with you. Unfortunately, Section 84, subsection F of the Constitution empowers the president to appoint a commission of inquiry. So which means that even if you have reservations about the commission, but then you cannot find the president wanting, because what he's doing is legally justifiable. But is it politically sound? My answer is an emphatic no. I don't necessarily believe in appointing these commissions, particularly because a commission of inquiry does not have prosecutorial powers. So which means that we have this commission. It is going to conduct the investigation like it has started. compile a report and make recommendations. But will those recommendations be implemented? That is where the question is, which is then why I also have an issue with the Zondo Commission, where we spent almost R1 billion, but we didn't get what we hoped we were going to get. So in principle, I'm not a fan of commissions, but unfortunately, legally, I have no leg to stand on, given that it's in fact enshrined in the Constitution.
No, most definitely. What would you say, has been the one point that has stood out for you through the course of this commission? It's been 2 days now, and he's made all kinds of explosive allegations in his testimony. Issues of crucial evidence that he submitted to the Zondo Commission. I think back in 2011 being ignored, the involvement of people like the former police minister, being involved in unscrupulous kind of happenings within the SAPS. It's just been a lot. But from your perspective, from your point of view, what has been the most outstanding issue that he has raised that you think deserves a little bit more attention than it is currently getting?
Yes, indeed. It's a couple of issues, but the packaging of his presentation is what makes sense to me, because in each and every level, he has giving us a name or names. Looking at, for example, the members of parliament, we already have two names there. Adams' name is presented there from the Cape Coloured Congress. You also have the member of the DA also included there. And then the previous leaders in Natim Tetwa, and then of course Bheki, they are implicated. Then we have the suspended minister, Senzo Mkhwanazi, is implicated. So the names that are mentioned there, then not only does it divulge those names, but it also provides evidence to back up whatever he's saying. So, and then what is also critical for me is the name of Kate Matlala. Kate Matlala seems to be the central figure in all of what is happening, because the guy is not a member of SAPS, he's not a member of parliament, he's not a member of any of the structures in the security cluster. But then his name looms large in all the conversations. So the question is, how did he get involved in all of this? That is one thing that needs to be followed up. Then the second thing, of course, is the interference, political interference in the work of the police, which then makes it difficult for them to crack some of the cases. The case in Richards Bay is one case in point, for example, where there are a number of issues that raise eyebrows. And then, of course, we'd expect that after the report has been prepared and recommendations have been made, then there will be further investigations, which is where I'll be interested, not necessarily what has been divulged by General Mkhwanazi.
Just looking at his testimony, to what extent do you believe the structure of South Africa's police, our intelligence, the judicial, and just the overall prosecutorial arms is vulnerable to capture by corrupt interests? And does this testimony substantiate fears that many of us have had for years? We've always had, conversations around us being a mafia state. Are we there? Just looking at these allegations, can we say South Africa has gone beyond the tipping point? We are a mafia state. And if not, what can we do to make sure that, we don't become one?
We are now way there, my brother. We're already 1 foot there. Then in no time, we'll be 100% in there. Unfortunately, when you look at how things have been unfolding, there is no optimistic picture that is painted. For me, it's a pessimistic picture. Because let me give you one example. Look at our government. We have the executive, and then you have the legislatures. Under normal circumstances, constitutionally, the legislature must hold the executive accountable. But on many occasions, that does not happen. A case in point is the Phala matter, where Parliament was supposed to hold the executive accountable, in this case, the sitting president. But then instead, the ANC, which had the majority at the time in the sixth administration, decided to use its numbers to protect the president, not because they felt he was right, but because he was one of their own, and they felt that they had to protect him. Then you bring in people from the NPA, you expect them to be acting impartially because the constitution tells you that the judiciary is an independent arm of government. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Listening to General Mkhwanazi and looking at some of the examples that have happened in the past, no closely picture is painted there. So, under normal circumstances, looking at the structures we have in place, we should be in a position to prevent South Africa from becoming a mafia state. But unfortunately, some of those who are supposed to be the vanguards of our democracy are the ones who are failing us, which then means that in no time we'll find ourselves being a fully fledged mafia state.
Mm, mm, mm. And I think one of those points that I think support, the claim that you're making, and I think, this is not covered enough. The part of the testimony where he speaks of, the disbandment of the KwaZulu-Natal political killing task team, and claims that the minister might have influence in that decision. What do you make of that aspect, and what could be the implications of those kind of decisions being made behind closed doors?
They are very concerning, my brother. I will not mince my words. That they are very concerning. I've asked the question in other platforms as to why these 121 or 123 dockets were removed from KwaZulu-Natal. Because according to Mkhwanazi, there are 121, but there are 2 files that have another file inside, so it makes them to 123. But be that as it may, 121, 123, doesn't matter. The question is, why were those files removed from KwaZulu-Natal in the first place? And under whose instruction? And when they were supposed to be taken back to KwaZulu-Natal, then there was a talk that they must in fact be diverted to the Madlanga Commission. What for? Because if the Madlanga Commission wants to have something from those files, just give them copies and then send the original documents to KwaZulu-Natal. It was a fight until then eventually they then agreed that yes, indeed, they must go back to KwaZulu-Natal. And immediately when those files arrived, there were already 2 people who were prosecuted for that, or at least were formally charged based on those files. So then, which means that when the files were removed, there was then a halt in the process. So if the files had been left in KwaZulu-Natal, would have made inroads in a number of instances, but then, of course, that was delayed because of a decision that was taken elsewhere. So I think this should be a learning curve for us going forward, that let us allow the police to do their job, let politicians do their job, and then everyone must just stay on his or her lane. Then our country will be in a better position. At the moment, it doesn't look like this is the case.
Just lastly, before I let you go, Prof, South Africans watching all of these proceedings, going on their TVs, all these kind of allegations being made, what should be our response? Should we become angrier? What should South Africans do when the rot in the criminal justice system is portrayed for everyone to see, and we can see the full extent of just how much the institutions that are supposed to be protecting us are essentially used to further perpetuate crimes against the people of this country?
When looking at Mkhwanazi's submissions and presentations, we must be appreciative of what he's done and the boldness in which he has taken this matter. So we must appreciate that as a nation. But then number 2, we must be worried. We have all the reasons to be worried that if our justice system has been infiltrated, our police force has been infiltrated, then obviously it means that it depends on who you are and not necessarily what you have done. Because you and I can commit the same crime, but then if I am connected and you are not, obviously you will be on the receiving end, and then I'll just go scotch-free. Then the question then is, what message are we sending to the would-be criminals? Because they would say, okay, there are loopholes, let us seize the opportunity, and then it means that we won't be in a position where we can fight crime, because criminals are basically forging relations with people in the political arena, and they are forging relations with people in the justice system, which therefore means that we have no hope of being protected. That is a serious concern. So as a nation, we must be concerned and we must be worried.
And I think we're going to end that note. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure having you on Salam Media, and I hope we catch up again soon.
Thank you.
There you go. That is Professor Bheki Mngomezulu with vital insights into what General Mkhwanazi's testimony might mean beyond the headlines, and just giving us some insight on what we probably might have missed, because it's a long commission, goes out from morning right till the afternoon. You're busy, you have lives to live, you have work, but I think he kind of put into perspective some of the important factors that we need to look out for. And yeah, as the commission moves into deeper phases, because it's just the beginning of it, Mkhwanazi being the first to present his testimony there, it'll be interesting to see how it's going to be perceived, how it's going to turn out, continuing to challenge, those that are being named, hearing the rebuttals that will be presented, and just the recall of all the witnesses that will be there. I think it's definitely a high stakes. If proven, these allegations risk undermining not only confidence in the criminal justice system, to be honest, but in the democratic project in itself. So yeah, we're going to continue to try and give you the latest out of that commission. And yeah, you should also watch closely, follow us on our various social media pages, because what seems to be a somewhat distant legal drama could ultimately shape our everyday justice and equality, and affecting us personally, because these are institutions that are supposed to be protecting us on all fronts, but seeing that they are used, as I mentioned, to perpetuate these crimes, I think leaves a lot to be desired. What do you think is the best response as a South African watching this commission unfold? What do you want to do? Are we supposed to respond by, going to a polls to vote? Is I think that's the basic one. But other than that, the elections are in 2029. Granted, we have the local government elections now in October next year. But an immediate response, what should it be? Because I think in South Africa, for the most part, we just let things go. We make so much noise on social media, but in literal felt terms, we do little to nothing when it comes to making sure that there are consequences for these kinds of actions, and the people that are guilty and that are being fingered in all of them ultimately, face the might of the law. You can engage with us. You can send out your comment, and the conversation can continue on our various social media platforms. Otherwise, we're going to leave it here for now. Salala Makudir, Salam Media Highlights. Enjoy your weekend. Shap, shap.